Please welcome Dr. Laurel Zettel-Watson.
Thank you, Russ. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here today and see your faces, at least virtually. When my students do this, they all put up funny pictures of their dogs, and then I think they go away and just pretend that they're sitting there listening. So to see actual live people is making my day. So I am going to chat with you a bit today about the current social distancing rules that we are living under and how to avoid that turning into social isolation, or if we're already feeling isolated, what we might be able to do about that. So everyone is aware now of this new phrase that has entered our common vernacular of social distancing, right? That's remaining out of congregate settings, not having any mass gatherings, and maintaining a distance between us and others of about 6 feet whenever possible. And this social distancing is likely going to persist probably throughout the rest of this year. And I'm even hearing talk in public health circles that this might be our new normal to prevent spreads of disease going forward. So the CDC has given us the social distancing definition. A lot of states, including our own, have put forth more stringent requirements. In California, for example, back in March on the 15th, Governor Newsom started asking all older adults in California, those over the age of 65, to stay home. And that's 13% of the California population, over 5 million people. And I think his intention was to start by keeping those believed to be most vulnerable at the time at home. But just 4 days later, on March 19th, the state followed up with a mandate that extended to all Californians. So stay at home became a thing that we have now all been living since March 19th. And the only exemptions here are for people dubbed essential workers. As of today, some good news from our public health officials. It appears that California is doing a better job than many other states at, quote, flattening the curve. But no news yet on when these stay-at-home orders are going to be lifted or scaled back. So as of today, we're still all snug in our homes. But what that means is that we have entered the 7th week with missing so many of our normal life events. So we're in 7 weeks now with no meetings with our coworkers, our colleagues, our clients, our students. We are being told to stay home from services at our churches and synagogues or mosques. Some people may have been able to find these online, others may feel isolated from that. We are in 7 weeks of no social gatherings, and this includes any outing with friends, but also our museum trips, our sporting events, concerts that we may have had tickets to, enrichment classes. Most of the things that we've been looking forward to, or that we've purchased tickets for, or we've been scheduling for weeks or months, have now been canceled. I think about some of our students who, have put in years of hard work to be the first person in their family to graduate from college, and commencement has been postponed. My kids are missing, camp and a trip to DC. So there are a lot of things that are affecting everyone in the population from not being able to leave the home, and all the events that have been canceled. This includes other things like just the little things, like meals at our favorite restaurant, things that we used to take for granted. We're no longer able to do. Even taking a stroll through our favorite park. This includes all of our outdoor activities that, again, we used to take for granted. We live in Southern California. We've got excellent weather year round. Many of us have taken advantage of being outdoors as often as possible. And, we've lost that ability. And even just the freedom to stroll through our favorite stores or shops and to leisurely walk about. And, I used to, I guess this is the mom talking, I would find it relaxing to just walk through Target up and down the aisles, probably making some purchases I didn't necessarily need, but it was a relaxing thing for me to kind of leave the family behind and have a little alone time. All of those things we've taken for granted are no longer accessible to us. And so what we are really trying to do now is to make sure that this mandated social distancing doesn't turn itself into social isolation. And they are two different things. Social distancing is the idea that we're keeping physically spread apart from other human beings so as not to contract this horrible virus. But social isolation has a lot of components to it above and beyond just being distant from others. So I want to start by just kind of defining what we mean by some of these terms. Social isolation is really the physical state by itself. So this is our prolonged lack of contact or communication with other people. So most of us, or anyone who might be living alone, might truly be socially isolated by definition, simply by being in their home without other people. So it's kind of given us a new literal meaning to social isolation. The component that we are a bit more concerned with is the loneliness piece that comes along with that. The loneliness piece is the emotional state that can come with the physical. The loneliness idea is it's not feeling connected to other people. So where we feel that we're separate, or we've got this empty feeling or a feeling of loss. It's possible that these come together, that one leads to the other, but it's important to recognize that they're not synonymous. So just because we may find ourselves physically alone, that doesn't have to mean that we're also simultaneously experiencing loneliness. So it is possible to be isolated without feeling lonely, and that's what we're going to aim for with this talk today. And it's also possible that we see plenty of people who feel lonely who are not actually physically isolated. We've done some research with college students and adolescents. These are people who literally have 1,000 friends in their social networks, their online social networks. And their levels of loneliness are higher than all other age groups. They report feeling lonely, probably because, you sit there and you say, how can I have 1,000 friends, but no one to do something with tonight? So loneliness is something that we see a lot in younger people who are not physically isolated. So we're going to try to, kind of go back and forth between these ideas as we go through this. Before COVID-19, social isolation was already affecting about 1 in 5 older adults. And the literature defines older adults as those over the age of 65. So social isolation was affecting about 20% of folks before people were told to stay in their homes and separate or distance themselves from others. So it had already been something on our radar. And because of that, we have a lot of research about the impacts that social isolation can have on both our physical and our emotional health. So I'm going to start with the physical health impacts, just to kind of give you a quick background of why we are concerned about people who are socially isolated. We know at this point in time that social isolation is incredibly powerful in terms of the impact that it can have on our physical health. For example, we know that those who are socially isolated tend to practice poor health behaviors. This can include poor diet or lack of nutrients in one's diet. Tends to include poor exercise habits and also poor sleep habits. So those are some of the big three that we see: diet, exercise, and sleep are the poor health behaviors that can come along with social isolation. And these can lead to other health problems like obesity. We also know that those who are socially isolated are also at risk for having a compromised immune system. So we tend to see people being at higher risk for the types of things we're actually trying to protect people from right now. So the compromised immune system is another issue. Social isolation also has direct impacts on things like our blood pressure. People with social isolation are at higher risk for high blood pressure, and this leads directly to heart disease. So we see higher rates of heart disease in the socially isolated. We also see mobility problems and things that can lead to disability from a physical perspective in folks that are socially isolated. And premature death is on my list here, and I have it in all caps. In the last couple of years, by doing some huge longitudinal studies with tens of thousands of adults from around the world, scientists have actually now determined that social isolation has the same risk to our mortality as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. And that is a staggering statistic. For decades, we've known how powerful smoking is and how bad for us smoking is. And the researchers have determined that even after controlling for all these other risk factors, social isolation is just as damaging to our overall health and mortality risk as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So that, I think, really, to me, underscores the physical health impacts of social isolation. But the things we may be feeling a little bit more upfront here are the emotional health aspects. Social isolation absolutely also impacts our emotional and mental health. So we know that social isolation, especially kind of in our current context, triggers a lot of feelings of fear and hopelessness. This can be specific to fear about ourselves, our own health, but also the health and well-being of our loved ones. So that is certainly something that is completely normal and triggered by the current context. Similarly, anxiety and depression are heightened in situations where people are sort of forced out of their social comfort zones. So we are absolutely seeing increases in the rates of both anxiety and depression during this current epidemic. And I will talk more about those in just a minute. Another place that you may not have been aware, but social isolation is also correlated with cognitive impairment. So folks that may be nervous about declining cognition, fearing dementia, social isolation can help, unfortunately, speed those things along. So we find that people who are not socially isolated tend to do better with their cognitive aging. And then you are probably aware, being socially isolated from friends and loved ones puts us at greater risk for things like fraud and different types of elder abuse. Very common fraud that's occurring right now is people who are calling people of all ages, not just older adults, but saying, hey, I've got your stimulus check here, but I need to confirm the spelling of your last name, and I need your social security number and your current address, and great, thanks, we'll get that check out to you right away. I'll say this just because it doesn't hurt to keep saying it. No one will ever ask, no one who needs this information or should have it will ever ask for it over the telephone. But we have so many people of all ages being scammed right now, giving up personal details because they want their stimulus check. So that's just one example, and there are so many other types of scams taking place. And the further removed we are from our loved ones, the more possible it is for those scammers to be successful. So all of these things are aspects that we really want to, take stock of and be very cautious about, because these are real world impacts of social isolation. I also want to really talk about some of these issues by not being able to leave our homes in the current pandemic. This creates a host of additional issues, things that are really tied to being able to be in charge of our own decisions and leave our homes. All of a sudden being told we can't do that really sort of challenges our sense of freedom or our autonomy or independence. And as we age, those things have a growing significance for us. And so being told that, no, you're stuck in your home, you're not allowed to leave, you shouldn't leave, or, being stigmatized for leaving, that does take a toll on our sense of freedom or autonomy or independence. We also have some folks who may be alone at home and truly immunocompromised or very much at risk where it is unsafe for them to leave their homes, and yet they're unable to get the basic necessities that they need to live in their daily lives. So we've heard of a whole bunch of stories where, we went to a good place in our society where we were able to have food delivered or groceries ordered in. And I have not checked recently, but I know at the beginning of all of this, when there was a lot of hoarding going on and people were trying to get grocery deliveries and being told that their date was 3 weeks out, which might be impossible for somebody who just needs food for the next couple of days. So that creates a great deal of stress, obviously. And so for individuals who may not have direct assistance, that can be something that is seen as incredibly stressful. For many others, routine appointments are canceled. This probably includes things like medical appointments. But for a lot of people, that might be their primary source of interaction in a regular week. And so if these types of appointments get canceled, it has more of an effect than just that medical component. There's also the psychological component and the connection that might come with it. And while we see about 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 who live alone and are probably isolated home alone right now, 3/4 of people over the age of 65 are, quote, isolated with family. For many of them, that is a spouse or partner. For others, it might be a multi-generational household. But I don't want to, breeze past this idea of being stuck with family. Hopefully we have fond feelings of family, but 7 weeks is a long time to be stuck in a house with anybody. So we're going to talk about some of those aspects going forward as well. And it's important to recognize that all of these elements exacerbate our experience of isolation and in turn our feelings of loneliness. And that because of the pandemic that's going on, that can intensify both our physical and mental health consequences that we're all experiencing. So just to kind of put all of that into context, we end up with a really unfortunate kind of set of ironies here. First and foremost, social distancing is being done on purpose to protect the most vulnerable among us. And it is a well-intentioned social phenomenon. So when the president's task force and our government and our local public health officials are stressing the importance of social distancing, they are truly doing that to try to protect the most vulnerable. But the ironic piece here is that the isolation that stems from the social distancing is actually likely to hit the most vulnerable the hardest. So that's one part of this. The other side is that what we know about human nature and social support, when humans are stressed or when we're scared, we seek out other people. We seek the support of others. We seek a hug. But social distancing is actually restricting our ability to receive the support that makes us feel better. And what's making us feel sad or scared is being stripped of our support. So you can see how this kind of cycle, again, becomes ironic. So really our big challenge is, what can we do about this? How do we protect ourselves in terms of our emotional health and our physical health? How do we still access our social support when all the means that we previously had of accumulating it are kind of out the window? How do we do this? What are the recommendations? So I've pulled together recommendations for lots of different research sites and support sites, and I pulled out my exclamation points for this one. The most important, hands down, the most important thing that you can do for yourself right now is take care of yourself. And it's the, age-old chicken and egg problem, I think, of parents, of caregivers, of anyone who's responsible for another human being, where we say, I am spread so thin taking care of others that I just don't have time for myself. Well, all the research comes down on this point that if you don't take time for yourself, you're not going to be any good for those other people that are counting on you. So your job, first and foremost, is to make time for self-care. And the science behind this has some really clear suggestions. They'll say, first and foremost, creating and sticking to a daily routine is paramount. So that is a way that by having a routine that happens every day, we're training our body and our minds to kind of go through it on autopilot so that it allows us less bandwidth to think it through. So if we can get something like that set up, that's going to include those big three that I talked about earlier. You're going to need a healthy diet, which means, 3 meals, square meals throughout your day, or if you're a grazer, then whatever your plan is for that. But making sure you're getting all your required nutrients, spacing it out across the day, getting in exercise. And exercise does not have to mean the traditional going to the gym for a workout. There are lots of ways we can figure out how to exercise in small spaces. So, we can just walking around the house can be helpful. Stretching and yoga, dancing, Tai Chi, any of those are things that we can do inside of our home or in our backyard, but safely away from other people. And the nice part is that so many different resources have been made available. So previously, you might have had to pay to see certain yoga videos or recordings, or to see Tai Chi recordings, or to get into an online dance class. Many people are now making those free of charge. So you can figure out which one you like the best, and you can log in and just watch somebody do, kind of in the style of the, Jane Fonda workouts. So all of those things are available to us now. Typically almost anything you can find free of charge, but making sure that we get that kind of exercise is going to be critical when trapped at home. Exercise reduces stress and it promotes better sleep. And sleep is another one of those things when everything sort of fades into the hours turn into days. And, I had to start setting alarms on my phone. I've never had to do that before, to remind me, oh, it's Monday, you teach today. Because if I didn't have those alarms, I might forget which day is a weekend, because it all feels the same. My normal routine is not it's gone, and I'm not able to keep my mind straight anymore. So certainly whatever it takes, but training our bodies to stay on the same sleep schedule we used to have, even if we don't have that job to get up and go to, or, the events that we used to do. It's important to honor our body's routine. And similarly, all the research on the psychological impacts of isolation say that it's beneficial if we can get out of bed every day at the same time, make our bed, shower, brush our teeth, get dressed. And regardless of what that means, getting dressed, for me, I've been living in yoga pants, put on the nice shirt, and then, the yoga pants. But for others, it might mean getting dressed like you were going to work, just if that helps you feel like you can continue to get your things done. So whatever that means for you, getting that routine and sticking to it. One of the big problems that we're seeing right now for people who are experiencing increased depression and anxiety has to do with the 24-hour news availability. Basically, at any time, day or night, you can pull up your tablet or smartphone or turn on the television, and there is information coming at us. The problem with that is it can get us stuck in cycles, and get us nervous and worried and panicky. All the research will suggest turn off the news. If you want to stay abreast of what's going on, give yourselves 15 minutes in the morning, maybe another 15 minutes in the evening, just to sort of hear the highlights. But it doesn't do any of us any good to listen to the same stories drawn out in 10 different ways across the course of the day. All the research points to that causing greater worry and depression, as opposed to helping us. So turning off the news is a big one. Also limiting social media. It's one thing to use social media to be in contact with people, but if you're somebody who just finds yourself falling in the endless hole of scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, most of the things that we find on there tend to be really heavy with propaganda. They may not be real news. And it really is not doing any of us any good in a time when we're already a little more anxious than usual. So turn off the news, limit your social media. Other things that are super helpful that we can do free of charge in just a few minutes are things like practicing meditation or mindfulness. There are some fantastic free apps available for your phone or your tablet. that allow you to meditate in a variety of different ways or practice mindfulness techniques. And I have an app, it was free, and it's basically just a deep breathing exercise. And it's a nice man with an Australian accent who walks me through recentering. And in about 3 minutes, I can go from just 50 things running through my head to just calm breathing because he tells me how to do it. And, you know, there's a 1 minute, a 3 minute, and a 30-minute exercise, right? You can do as much or as little as you need. But those things are available. And even if you've never tried them before, it doesn't hurt. We've got the time now. Take a few minutes and see if something might work for you. Probably the thing most of you have been already working on is hobbies. This is a time when we are stuck in our homes to do things that make us happy. And this is kind of the easiest way to inner peace and feeling psychologically sound is to do those things that make us feel good. For some people, it might be reading those books you've intended to read but haven't had a chance to. Baking or cooking new foods. This is a great time to try a new recipe. Gardening, if it's safe for you to still go outside, that's a great way to get your sunshine in and some fresh air. Journaling has been really recommended. And in particular, given that this current time, this pandemic, is likely to be something of a historical nature, keeping a journal now, whether it is a written journal or a video journal or a voice journal, something where you're recording daily events, how you're feeling, what the world is doing around you, that could actually be turned into something like legacy leaving for your children and grandchildren who someday are going to wonder what it was like to live through this. Having that documented is one really cool side effect of journaling. The clear piece of journaling is all the research shows that just writing our feelings down, thoughts and feelings, even if you never intend to show it to another human, makes us feel better. So that is an excellent way to just share your thoughts without having to share them with someone else. Puzzles are an excellent way to pass the time. My daughter and I have been doing probably about a puzzle a week, and it's a great way for us to be together, but not force interaction. We can chat as we feel like it. It's a good go-between that gives us a shared event, but still sort of, we can be in our own heads or talking with one another. This is a great time to do crafts. It's also a great time to do little chores around the house. I would like to say I've been good at this, but at my house, I want to try to do a drawer or a cupboard, clean it out, one a day. We're 40 some days in, and I've definitely not done 40, but like the 7 that I've done so far, I feel good about. So as you try to give yourself reasonable things, but don't expect that this is a time when you're going to accomplish, overwhelming things, because that's when if we set our goals too high, that gives us, that feeling of failure. And we absolutely don't want that right now. So set reasonable goals. Other things that you can do to take care of yourself is online classes. Some of them are synchronous like this one. Other things are asynchronous. And so many universities across the country have made their content free of charge right now. So if that's something that interests you, go exploring and look to see what things might be out there, because that's an excellent way to nurture yourself. I want to talk for a minute about feelings of depression and anxiety. And I want to first say that it is absolutely normal in periods like this, where we are experiencing a worldwide pandemic. People are locked up in their homes, and tens of thousands of people have died. It is absolutely okay to have depressed or anxious thoughts and feelings at this time. So if you are somebody who has had these before in your life, you probably recognize them for what they are. If these feelings are new to you, they're probably scary, maybe overwhelming, but I first want to make sure that you are kind to yourself and you normalize these feelings, because it is perfectly normal to have them at this point in time. That being said, there are treatments for both depression and anxiety. That's the good news. So if you are having these feelings, you're not quite sure what feelings you're having, I've put a link here to a screening. This is actually a New Zealand site because the US is a lot trickier about, I think they want everything done by professionals and they don't like people getting their hands on screening tests because they want professionals to do it. But I think that this site in New Zealand does an excellent job of giving you a couple of tests that you can take, and they take literally 30 seconds. But it just kind of goes through some symptoms of depression and lets you know, based on your score, how concerned you should be and whether or not it's a good idea to talk to a professional, or if there is something more urgent you should be doing. Similarly, same thing for the anxiety tests. And oh good, that worked. The note that I want to make about those tests, I chose that knowing it was from New Zealand, but thinking that those were the best one-stop shop to screen yourself for both depression and anxiety. But I do want to add the caveat that because it's a site in New Zealand, if you follow any of the links at the end, it'll take you to sites in New Zealand, which you wouldn't qualify for being in the US. So this is meant to be more of a starting point for you. Take the screenings, see if they are, if they shed any light on whether you may be suffering from depression or anxiety, and then go from there in terms of looking for resources locally. And I'll go over a couple of those here in a second. I did want to take a quick second to talk about those of us who are home with others. So we are isolated at home, but there are other people here with us. And when I saw this picture, I thought it was perfect. I am in my home with my husband and my 2 kids, and it's a decently spacious home, but it shrinks every day. And I think the important things for us to do if our space is not our own is first and foremost communicate what we need. It is, especially for people who are used to leaving the house frequently, who had very active social lives, who would go out to events and, spend time with friends and really, we're really well-rounded. Now, all of a sudden you're told spend 24/7 with this one person or these couple of people without those other support systems. So the first thing we need to be able to do is communicate our needs. And that means that we have to be able to have difficult conversations and sort of say, I love you, but I need this. And this is particularly true for people who might have different personality styles. If you are an introvert who needs your alone time, but your partner is an extrovert who needs other people around, you can see how those might clash together. You will need to decide on fair boundaries that give you both what you need. And it is absolutely okay and not selfish to ask for alone time if that means that you can be a better partner during your together time. So certainly that is something that, we have to kind of manage or maneuver. And so doing that balance, doing things together, I have a bunch of suggestions here about things that people can do together: online classes, movies or TV shows, going to your religious services online together. A lot of concerts are now online. Yo-Yo Ma did something. I think U2 did something, and they're doing these from their living rooms, but they're making these concerts available for free. Those are ways that you can, pour a glass of wine or a cup of coffee and sit back and just relax and maybe pretend that you are actually at a concert. Doing video chats with your kids and grandkids or with friends and family from afar. My husband and I have been doing poker games online with friends while also doing Zoom so we can see each other. And that's been an excellent way to kind of stay in touch with other friends of ours. So we're kind of doing it together, but we're widening our circle. And then taking time apart is critical too. Every one of us, even the extroverts, need a little time at some point to recharge. And whether that means enjoying our alone time or enjoying time with friends who are outside of our house, away from our partner. And I told my husband, and he's done the same, we take about an hour each week to for me, it's pour a glass of wine and get on Zoom with girlfriends from around the country. And we use that time to just kind of complain about our spouses and kids. But it's that time with friends that helps me. It's a support system. And I look forward to it. And I appreciate my family more when I come back to them. So there are a lot of benefits to making sure you're getting that time apart as well as the time together. Technology is here for us like it's never been before. And since all of you are watching me right now on Zoom, I'll take that as a good sign that you all have some good knowledge about what technology can do for us. Right now, more than ever, we need to rely on technology to socialize with friends and family. Obviously, that includes things like these video chats that we're doing now, Zoom, Skype, FaceTime. But don't underestimate traditional phone calls. A lot of people now are more available than ever before to take a phone call. And hearing a voice from someone they haven't talked to in a long time can be really encouraging right now. So reach out, be the first person to make a phone call, and start something with that. Text chains are another way. I think that a lot of people are getting stressed out by the synchronous nature, meaning we all need to be on at the same time to do Zoom or Skype or even phone. But text chains and emails allow us to still communicate with one another, but at our own speed. And I think that, that's an excellent way. My family is doing a bit more of that where, once a day we'll send, there's probably 6 or 8 of us on this text chain, my dad and sister and brother and, spouses of ours. And we'll send a funny meme, or somebody else will tell a funny story, or send a video clip of the kid or the dog doing something weird. But it's just keeping in touch without us all needing to set the same time aside every day. Other things that technology is helping us with right now are online religious services. So most of our religious organizations have had to go online. If your specific church hasn't been able to do that yet, the likelihood is you can find something in your denomination online that is available. Online games have been excellent. This is my kids' go-to with staying in touch with their friends. Words with Friends, for those of you that don't know, is kind of like Scrabble. You can have games going on with multiple people at a time. It's asynchronous again, so that you're doing it on your own speed. My son is doing a free chess app online with a friend. So they each do moves, and then they get a ding when the other person has done their move, and they can go in, and it's just this long-lasting chess game. So lots of really cool stuff available. And most of it, again, is free. Moving a little away from the social aspect, but I don't want to discount it, are the availability that's out there for all of our telemedicine needs. Most fields of medicine right now have, if not permanently, at least temporarily, allowed for their practitioners to work through telehealth, which means that even occupational and physical therapists can now conduct sessions over the internet. So if you are nervous that you are missing out on a traditional therapy that you've been regularly getting, check in with your provider and see if telemedicine is an option for you. Because again, technology has really been offering a lot of things throughout all of this. There are also so many community support services. I have been absolutely thrilled to be on the board of a lot of local places and see the amazing outside the box thinking that people are coming up with. I am so excited to be in California during this time because I really see the governor and the state public health agencies and the local ones really thinking outside of the box and trying to create programs on the fly. So if you have normally been working with a senior center or OLLI in this case, check to see what kinds of activities or programs might be available virtually. OLLI is doing an excellent job with still making content like this available. And you have a chance to get on and see your friends' faces through the screen and all be attending something simultaneously. A lot of our local centers have been doing the same thing. Meal delivery services like Meals on Wheels have been taxed to their limits, and they are still doing an amazing job with providing things, providing meals to people that need it. They have been tapped over the last few weeks with a record number of people requesting assistance. If you are able, this is an excellent place to volunteer or make donations, because they are being stretched to their limits right now and beyond, but they are doing their best to keep serving all the people that need assistance. Grocery services, as I mentioned, sometimes getting things delivered to us might be not reasonable because of their timelines. I was really excited to see on one of my neighborhood apps, Nextdoor in particular, there's a lot of, silly stuff that happens there, but one of the best things that I've seen during all of this are college students or other healthy young adults who are basically like, I'm available and would love to help. If you feel unsafe leaving your home because you're high risk for catching an illness, I can do it for you. Send me your shopping list. Most of these folks are willing to do it free of charge. People maybe tip them for their gas or their time, but there are people out there who are able to help. Similarly, the transportation services, Orange County Transportation has been working hard to stay in business and keep things running for people. Uber and Lyft have changed their guidelines to make riding as safe as possible. And places like CVS and Walgreens are making medication delivery free of charge. So you can order through the store and still have it delivered. So you don't have to mess with a new technology. They're just saying, instead of you coming to pick it up now, we can get it to you. So there are a lot of community services that are stepping up and being supportive. There are two things that I wanted to include at the bottom here. There have been crisis lines in place for years. But what has come out of this that I'm really encouraged by are support lines. They're helplines or phone lines that are not necessarily meant for people in crisis. They're meant for people who just need a little help or someone to chat with, a friendly ear. And this can be everything from, I am so frustrated with my partner who's driving me crazy at home, to I haven't seen another human being in 4 weeks, to I need help figuring out a meal service. Any one of those types of things can be helped by either of these services. And we're fortunate, the Friendship Line is something that was started by the Institute on Aging in California. And last week, with the governor's help, they announced that it would be statewide available. So this is something available to anybody over the age of 60 or anyone who is disabled. And it's meant for people who are lonely, isolated, or depressed, who are grieving, who lack supportive community, or just in need of a friend who knows how to listen. So that's a line that any of us can call if you need this assistance. It's also looking for volunteers right now if you feel like you want to do something while you're at home. So you can look up California Friendship Line, and it will take you to a place where you can fill out a request to volunteer on that site. And I think they have people do like a 4-hour shift. So you can check that out as well. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. The Orange County branch of NAMI has created a warm line. So it's not a crisis line, it's a warm line. And it's just meant for a place for people to go who need some human communication, some human contact, a supportive ear on the other end who will just listen and chat with you and, help you work through what you're thinking, or even help you find resources if that is where you are. So I wanted to make those available to you as well and remind you that this is, we could do another hour of just talking about services that are available, but those are great places to start in helping you find services if you are in need. Pretty soon, we think the stay-at-home order will likely lift, but the social distancing is probably here to stay for the foreseeable future. So what that means is even when we are allowed back out of our homes, we should still stay 6 feet apart, wear masks, and wash our hands, right? Keep practicing those behaviors so we're good at those to keep ourselves safe when we can leave the house. And then it behooves all of us to stay safe, to conduct our visits now that they can be in person. Still be smart about it. Do it in a spacious outdoor area, your back patio, your front porch, out at a park, where you can still sit 6 feet apart from people, bring your own chairs or your own snacks. And the goal here is to just avoid as much contact as possible with people and their belongings. So hold off on the handshakes and the hugs and kisses for a little bit. And just, this is a great way to help keep us safe. We're definitely moving in this direction, but we're going to need to social distance for a bit longer. So I hope this has given you a little bit of a deeper delve into what social distancing is and how to really watch out for social isolation, and some of the things that we may have in our power to help ourselves through until we can all get back to doing this in person. So that's what I have prepared. If anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to chat with you.
Yeah, Dr. Watson, there was a question about what the name of the app was that you use for meditation mindfulness.
I can tell you that right now. It's called Headspace. Headspace. Headspace.
Okay, so I think I'd just like to thank again Dr. Laurel Zettel-Watson for coming here today and presenting to us. And I think this has been a great help to all of us and shared a lot of useful information that we can share with our family and others. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for having me today and for taking time out of your days to let me see some friendly faces. I appreciate it. And be well, all of you. Stay safe. And hopefully the next time I see you, it will all be in one place.
We hope so. So thank you again, Dr. Watson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.